All right, Evan. So as promised, this is the international speech contest sheet that the judges use. And you'll see that let's go to the humorous one first. Right? So here's the humorous one. And you can see at the bottom of the first section, there's a thing called audience response. Whereas on the international one, that one is not there. So the contest points are separated a little bit differently for the humorous than they are for the international because of that one piece. But everything else that's on the international is also on the humorous. So I'm going to go over the humorous contest, and you'll understand that it applies to the international as well. Now, for those of you who can you guys see my mouse?
Yes.
That's okay. So
Definitely.
when the judge gets the sheet, what they do is they take the speakers' names and they put them up here at the top of the column so that they know what speaker is doing what. And in these boxes down here, the way I do it, I don't know if all judges do it, but the way I do it is I take the score from the middle here and I put pluses and minus inside these boxes. And every time that somebody hits something that I'm looking for, I'll put a plus. And every time that they miss something that I'm looking for, I'll put a minus. And then I'll add up the totals of the pluses and the minuses, and then I'll add it to the middle score here. So in this particular one here, the most you can get is 15, and the least that you can get is 0. But if I start at 15 and work my way down, then I'm biased against everything below it. And if I start with fair score, then I'm biased against everything that's above it. So I take a score from the middle, and I'll start here at 12. And then I'll add up the pluses and minuses, whatever the difference is, I'll add that to the 12, and that's what the score is for that speaker. And I'll follow that same pattern all the way down through all the different pieces. Now the question is, well, what do all these different pieces mean? And you can see here, there's some real simple stuff here. It talks about structure and organization. Next one talks about did it achieve a purpose? And you can see it has a basic information here. But what do these pieces mean? The good thing about this sheet is that all the judges get to see exactly what they mean. And if you are going to be a contestant and you have this portion of that judges sheet, then you'll know exactly what the judges are looking for. And here's a very good example, right? So we'll get to this, but here's a very good example. These here are questions that the judges are asking themselves. And you as a speaker, if you know what the judge is asking, you know what the judge is looking for, you can write your speech and adjust your speech accordingly ahead of time, even before you get up there, and then you can practice. So let's go with speech development, right? We all know what speech development is, the way that a speaker puts their ideas together. What the judge is going to be looking for is they're going to be looking for a structure around the purpose of how you're building your speech. So all your transitions need to be good. They all need to flow in a logical manner. You don't want to start off with point A and then go to point Z and then point W and then point B. Right? You want to go A, B, C, D. You want them in a logical, concise, because that way the audience and the judges will follow exactly what you're trying to do, and it'll go directly to what you're trying to get across. Because all speeches have a purpose. When you write that speech, there is a purpose behind it. The effectiveness that the judges are looking for is measured in part by the audience's reception of the speech. Now, the judge can't talk too much to the other audience members, right? So they can how does the judge themselves receive that speech? And this is where some of those questions are coming in. So the judge asks himself, was I able to determine what the speaker's purpose was? Did the speech relate directly to that purpose? Was the audience interested or the audience interest, was it held by the speaker, or did did their minds start drifting away and things like that? So I always tell people, when you're writing your speech, always write it backwards. What you want to do is you want to have the purpose of that speech as the last sentence or the last two sentences of that speech, so that you can slam home that purpose when you finish your speech. And everything that you have for supporting evidence that goes above it is the different stories, your personal stories and things that you're using to make that work. When you write those stories, if you find yourself drifting off to the side, then that drift needs to be yanked out of that speech and you need to throw it into the garbage can. Because everything that you want to talk about, you want it to relate to the purpose of that speech and only that purpose. So it's important that you keep that in mind when you write your speech going backwards. And then, of course, the very last thing that you do would be to write the introduction. And the introduction, you want to have it state your purpose the same way you do at the end. That way, when you finish the speech, they connect together and the whole thing is wrapped up into one big summation. And the judges will be looking for that. And if they don't see it, they will give minuses where it needs to be. And if the transitions aren't smooth, they'll give minuses where they have to be. Now, the speech value, this is it's all about the reason for speaking, right? This is all about the purpose, right? So the speaker has a responsibility to say something that the audience wants to hear, something that is meaningful to the audience, something that the audience can relate to, so that they feel that you as the speaker are contributing to the way that the audience thinks. Now, several times during the different trainings, I always go over the point that the audience may not remember the words that you say, but they will always remember the way you make them feel. And whether you're doing a humorous speech or some other speech, the important part is that you want to be able to get that point across and you want to be able to make that audience feel something, because that feeling will change the way they think. It will affect the way they think. No decision is ever made without basing it on emotion, ever. Now, this is the one that we were talking about earlier was the audience response. This is the extra piece that the judges are looking for, especially during this humorous contest. Because when you telling a joke and you're trying to get the audience to interact, you want to hear the audience laugh. And if the judges don't hear them laugh, then the joke sort of fell flat. So they look for this response for humor, and they'll judge it accordingly. Now, my idea is you're given a 5 to 7 minute speech, so every 1.5 minutes you should be getting a laugh, getting some sort of laugh or smile or something out of the audience, some kind of a reaction. Now, the delivery takes up 30% of the scoring. And all the time though, you hear us constantly I mean, every single evaluation we do, we drill it in. Oh, your gestures were this way. Oh, you could have improved. We talk about vocal variety. We talk about your facial expressions. We talk about your body language. All of these things are part of the physical presentation of a speech. And these are pieces that enhance the speech. And the speaker's appearance should reinforce that speech. So as you are out there doing these things, your appearance, your body language, your hand gestures, the clothes you wear. If you're talking about a clown and you come out dressed out as a clown, it makes a big difference. So all the physical pieces that you put together make a difference in the presentation of your speech, and the judges will judge accordingly. Your voice, your vocal variety, we talk about this all the time. You want to raise your voice, you want to add speed to it when you're excited. You want to be able to yell when you're mad. All these different pieces come in because they all enhance the emotion of the audience. It's not your emotion. You are portraying that emotion to the audience and they are feeling exactly what you are feeling when you do it. So if you're not playing the part and your voice is not playing the part, then rest assured the audience is not playing the part. Your manner is an uh, indirect way of the speaker showing their real self. Uh, in order, a lot of times when you see me speak, several people say, "Oh, Jim, you're always so enthusiastic. You're spontaneous. You get up there and your hands are all over the place." This is the type of things that we're talking about when we're talking mannerisms. You want to be as enthusiastic as possible. You want to show an interest in the audience. You are the expert while you're up there. You want to be able to show the confidence no matter what the audience reaction is, and you want to be able to move forward no matter what. And the last 15% is going to be on the language. So contrary to popular belief, it is not the words that you say, but it is more about how you say it and how you portray it. But you do want to make sure that the language is appropriate. Stay away from foul words, things of that nature. You don't want to have the audience cringe when they hear different words. You want to be as correct as possible, and you want to be as direct as you can. This part here just re-emphasizes the fact that it's not what you say, it's how you say it and what the audience feels when they hear your speeches. And that is basically all the things that the judges is looking for. Now we sit here and we do evaluations all the time, and we tell each other all these different things throughout the whole time that we're doing these. And I always emphasize during evaluations, tell the speaker why. And if you look at that judges sheet, you'll understand the why, because it all talks about the audience's reaction and the audience's feeling and how your speech does something with the audience, right? And that's the part that you're trying to get across from the speech. So I went through all that stuff. I would like to open up the floor for questions. You can unmute and ask. You don't have to sit there and stay muted.
Jim,
Yes,
Vivian
ma'am.
here.
Yes, Vivian.
I like all the material you showed us. I'm just wondering, wouldn't it be interesting if people delivering speeches at club level would be seeing this during meetings?
Yes, it would be interesting. I honestly believe that anyone who's given a speech at a club level should always try to give it at a contest level. And if they have these speeches and if they have the judges sheets and they understand what the judges are looking for, they can always adjust the speech and do things of that nature in order to make it more effective. Personally, I like the idea that you came up with on recording yourself and then turning the sound off and watching your gestures, whether or not they enhance the speech, and if not, to fix them and then reverse the process and turn the video off and just listen to it. And does the voice actually get the audience involved? And if it doesn't, then of course you have to make the adjustments in the vocal variety and things like that. So I really like that technique. That's a very, very good technique. I think everybody should be using that.
Thank you.
So Jim, one thought, I know that in the pre-virtual events, there's a lot of motion that people use, of course, walking back and forth, something you use that to draw the audience to a certain point that you're trying to make. Like for example, if your speech had 3 different key points in your personal life, you might walk to 3 different positions, but natural in the virtual contest, you don't have that option. Do you have some kind of alternative suggestions that you would think to maybe point out, say, different points in time, or gestures you thought are particularly effective when you're trying to identify maybe 3 different things or 3 different ideas? In other words, things that might make up for the fact that you don't have the same scope of movement that you do in a in an in-person contest.
I don't like to move around the stage just for the sake of moving around the stage. If I'm going to move around the stage, I want to do it with a purpose. So if I'm going to be talking about driving a car. I might be standing in the front of the stage and I talk about driving this car, and then all of a sudden I pulled over to the right, and of course I moved to the right when I say this, right? And so when you move during the explanation, that enhances that speech. Use the stage as a prop. So if you have certain space that you have to go to, there's nothing stopping you from, say, take off your shirt, or not your shirt, but your jacket while you're explaining something, and then you can walk to the right, and as you're explaining, and you put the jacket down. And by doing that, you put a demarcation of where the stage is on the right hand side, and you have the left fully available. You can do different things like that, and make use of the stage based on the things that you want to have done. Does that help, Don?
Yes, it sure does.
Anyone else? Lalitha, Sabud. If you don't have any questions, I'm going to assume you're going to be experts, and you're all going to be given contest level speeches at our next club meeting.
Jim,
Love the
Jim-
motivation.
Yeah.
Yes, May.
can you go over the part where people do the traditional speech of telling us what they're going to do, and then what they're going to say, and
Yeah,
what they have said like that?
Sure,
Can
sure.
you go over
So
that?
a lot of times they get out in the speaker's world, they say, you need to tell them what you're going to say, then you tell them, and then you tell them what you told them. And I don't particularly like to do it that way, because then a lot of times when you're getting out there speaking, it comes across as instructions. I'm going to tell you 3 different things. 1, 2, 3. And there's the effect that they have. 1, 2, 3. And it comes off blah, 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 blah. It's not a story. It doesn't suck the audience in. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're actually going out there and doing an instructional speech, then it's very effective to do that. But I personally, I like to hear the story, and I like to hear the flow and the content. So I don't particularly like to say 1, 2, 3. I want that to be embedded inside the speech itself. I came here today because I wanted to tell you all about my sailing experience. And then I would go through the 3 different pieces of what happened. We got out there and the wind did this, and you have to adjust the sails, or you have to hold on to the rudder, whatever 3 pieces that I want. And I would put them in the flow of my speech. I wouldn't sit there and point them out 1, 2, 3. So
Yeah, it seems to me, yeah. No, go ahead. I just one thought that occurred, but I didn't mean to jump in too quick.
you're kind of breaking up, Don.
Yeah, I guess, sorry to interrupt you. I would see, like, for an instructional speech, as you mentioned, like it may be explaining something about sailing, that's appropriate, but it seems like in humorous speech or a contest speech, I mean, the ones that seem to gravitate the audiences, when you come up with maybe some kind of a striking expression or a question, something that's pulling their attention in.
Sure.
So, it doesn't necessarily lend itself to, okay, the world's keeping it. And let me tell you in 3 different ways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just not in that kind of a mode.
Certainly. I mean, if you wanted to go with the sailing example, you sit there and you could talk about, oh, I was out there and I was pulling the sail, and all of a sudden the ship started swinging on it. I almost fell over, and I had to jump over to grab the rudder and try to get it to go straight so the ship didn't fall over on its side. Right? You can add all this excitement and all the different pieces, and it would still have the 3 pieces that you wanted to be talking about. It just comes out as a story. It makes a whole different atmosphere and a whole different way that the audience receives it.
Jim,
Yes, Vivian.
I presume, as I have all these years, that we go to Toastmasters to learn skills that we can use in the real world. But just imagine, in whatever field or endeavor you're in professionally, imagine if investors are in the room, or supervisors and managers, vice presidents, and you start with, let me tell you 3 things, you are going to get thrown out of the window. Now, I agree with you that it should be embedded. I agree with you totally. But I think more than 50% of evaluators always say, you must say, let me tell you 3 things. Now, you just think that is so obnoxious that the bosses will hate you. You will never get a promotion. You will not get a pay increase. It does not motivate. It does not inspire. I agree with you totally. It might be a point that most evaluators would want to internalize. Perhaps they should use the words, you want to deliver 3 points. But to say, you must tell them at the beginning. You do know when it comes to attitude, if you say, today I'm going to tell you 3 things, people will already lock their minds like, I don't like him. I don't like what he's saying. So I am agreeing with you totally. There must be a way to be sexier in delivery. Like if you go out on a date, you're not going to tell your date, Nadine, let me tell you 3 things why you will fall in love with me and bury me. Like, really? Really now?
And Nadine is falling asleep. Yeah, I don't want to hear that crap.
Right. So I tell people it's a wonderful organization. I highly respect it, but there's the real world. Come on, you don't go around tell your doctor, let me tell you 3 things why you want to use this brand of medicine. Like, give me a break. You're going to the judges. Let me tell you 3 things why you're going to end up in jail. Really? So,
I think
maybe-
Vivian should do a comedy routine on let me tell you 3 things and why I hate all 3 things.
okay,
Every
let me
do
do
it.
that in my next speech.
every
Seriously.
time I hear about, let me tell you, the only thing that pops into my head is the courtship of Eddie's father. Let me tell you about my best friend. Boom, boom. Uh-oh, I'm showing my age. I guess people don't know that show, huh? Do you guys don't remember that show, The Courtship of Eddie's
Long
Father?
time ago.
Yeah,
Yes.
Bill Bixby. It was fun. It was a good show.
Yeah.
So you can
My
see
favorite
Nadine
Martian.
is,
Yeah,
Hey,
my
Doc.
favorite Martian as well. Yes.
you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
see Nadine is politely smiling and she says, what are these dinosaurs talking about?
Don't worry, Nadine. We're as old as
Yeah.
dirt, so it doesn't matter.
No idea.
Hey, but really, I want, here's my wish. If you have kids or grandkids and you want them to eat vegetables, I dare you. I don't challenge. I dare you. Hey, kiddo, let me tell you 3 things why you're gonna love vegetables and love to
Jeez.
eat them 3 times a day. Like, really now? Really?
Is this still part of the comedy routine?
Apparently.
Could be, yeah. But really, once I know this is being recorded, but really making people do 3 things, I know. Then I will inspire Hal to do a delivery speech. It's called The Art of Seduction. Let me tell you 3 things.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes. I think if you embed it into a story, right? Again, it's not the words that you're saying. It's the people, they won't remember words that you're saying. They'll remember how you made them feel. And if you go with the, oh, I'm going to tell you 3 things, blah, 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 it's out the window, right? They're not going to feel anything. But if you embed it in your story and you do it in a logical sequence, they'll follow it. They'll follow the excitement. They'll follow everything that you're talking about. They will relive that experience with you. And that's what you want. That's the whole point of the relationship between you as a speaker and everyone else as the audience. That's exactly what you want, because you'll have them eating out of your hand.
I think a lot of it has to do with
It
how
also
you
goes-
set up the need. Is there a need? Do you Do you present something in the beginning that has them go, wow, I really want to listen to this? So Jim gave us a whole bunch of points, right? But each time he sets up a need and then presents it in a way that's compelling and interesting, and it fits something that we need to know. But having said that, I just want to make sure we're not going to use those 3 points, right? Let me tell you 3 things. I just want to make sure, Vivian, is that correct? We're not ever using those?
I would hope
I'm
not.
kidding. I think those are words that should be banned from anyone who ever talks to anyone. I mean, it makes people hate you, really. Imagine how. If I say, let me tell you 3 things why you're never going to say, let me tell you 3 things. Like, who does she think she is? Right.
No way. So,
Right.
Well, it goes back to the point of, yeah, people don't do things based on the knowledge that they get. It's on the emotion that they get around it. So, that's why I think putting it into maybe 3 points, but if you put it into a story and it gets them excited about it, it may drive them to action. Just like, we may read about something, it doesn't change anything. But if you realize, hey, this could really apply, I could see myself in that situation, then you're likely to change. And hopefully a speech will deliver something that will cause people to change, just like Jim mentioned earlier. I think it's a good point.
I tend to think that when we're getting here in Toastmasters and we're sitting here talking, the idea is that you want to be able to have a conversation between you as the speaker and them as the audience, and the conversation has to flow both ways. Even if the audience doesn't say anything, it still has to flow both ways. You need to be able to get those emotions across. And if you're going to be doing instructional videos where you see these 3 things, it's going to be lost unless they're specifically there to learn exactly what you're trying to teach them. So if you have a class on taxes and everyone there is a tax person and they're there to learn specifically about taxes, then it might be okay. But if it's just a general audience, you want to get the flow and the emotion flowing between you and the audience, and doing it with the 3 things, and it's just not going to work. It's a bad setup. Lalitha, you've been quiet all this time.
Hi, Jim. Sorry.
Hey, you won the club contest and the area contest last year. Tell us about it.
Okay, give me a minute.
I'm timing you. 59, 58, 57.
Yes, Jim.
but Lalitha, please make sure that you tell us 3 points.
3 points only. It's very hard for me. I'm not a great talkative, but I cannot stick to 3 points. Less than 3 points.
Less than 3.
Yes.
1, 1.5, 2.
Yes, Jim. Whatever you has given the advice to us. This is not the first time I'm hearing that, but it's added two value to my speeches. Whenever I write a speech, I go through the points, how the judges gives the points. Based on that, I have written few speeches, and that helped me a lot. When I'm giving a speech, I feel like I covered whatever they're looking according to the judgment. So when I went to the contest, I felt like first point I took like not the content is important. Initially, I thought the content is very important, which should attract the speakers, like whoever listening audience. But that is not the point. You have to have gestures, and you have to make the with your words the audience interest. They should feel like they are listening to some story, or like involvement completely within 5 minutes is very hard. But to capture like not lengthy speeches, very short content, and the beginning and ending points, asking the questions and engaging the audience, it's really, really very, very important. As point of the every speakers has to take care of that. And when I reached first level, I thought, okay, I'm very up to the mark. But when I went to the second level, when I saw other speeches, I thought, okay, my speech is nothing. Because I see whatever the points very important in that speech, it's not in my content. It's not like it has to be so much of, I feel like it's need to be have little drama too. It's not reality. It need to have contains the drama to attract the audience. Is not true, Jim?
Sometimes, sure.
Yes. So whenever I saw when I heard other speeches, it contains a more drama. It need not be a real, like to attract the audience. Not necessarily who knows what we are telling is true or not. So it's a friction or non-friction. It doesn't matter. You have to make sure that the content and the delivery is very important.
Well, you should never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yeah. Yes, it is not necessary that. I was thinking like, okay, it has to be a reality, and no. When any speech, not necessarily. You can write, you be a writer, like whatever you want, what the title is, make it the way you want to present, make the way the audience likes to hear.
Mm.
Is that true?
Sure.
Jim?
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Anybody else?
Jim,
Yes, Vivian.
would it be useful for every speaker to just visualize or imagine? One, there's someone in front of you and you want him or her to fall madly in love with you. Two, it could be a 5-year-old and you want to make them two things. You can see the 1, 2, 3, and I'm not saying, let me tell you 3 things.
Yes,
And
she
3,
is.
yes, see? And then you can get things done and you didn't have to say, let me tell you 3 things.
You did 3 things without saying, let me tell you. You still did 1,
There
2,
you
3.
There you go. That is my whole point. Just deliver it. Got it? Just deliver it without saying, let me tell you 3 things. It's like a used car salesman. It's the most rotten car and you're beginning to love the car more and more, right? You just go through it and make people love the idea. And it's just something I've done all my life. I didn't know about the let me tell you 3 things. Like I've shared with you how I got out of trouble being in the principal's office. And I just realized now, like, oh, I was doing 3 things, right? I never got penalized. I had the principal laughing. So think about that. And in humor, I tell you, I have such violent reactions to that. You cannot tell people, let me tell you 3 things why you're gonna laugh. Like, really? See, just deliver it. And then at the end of it, if you follow my columns, it's at the end. And I'll just say, oh, you might want to remember there are 3 things. How do I say that? I just say, remember these. And I number it 1, 2, 3, or I put 3 bullet points. I would think the recap is what people remember. Like, again, when you go out on a date, you remember the last kiss. You hardly remember what was said in the first 5 minutes. It's just like, wow, that was some date. Look at Hal. He's like, which one of them? Look at Hal's face.
Listen, I just want to know the 3 things. That's all I care about. Jim, I'm
See,
sorry this is deteriorated.
Yes. Subud does have his hand raised.
Okay, good.
Yeah, hi Jim and hello everyone. I think like points which are shared by Jim and everyone are really nice. I feel those are some of the points which we all have to take care on that. In addition to this, I recently trying to improve my speeches and how I deliver those things, and I got to learn one technique which I want to share with all of you is. Um, Along with Udly, I found an article where when you really want to give a speech, just record a video of yourself and hear that video without picture once and just see, are you liking the way how you're speaking, your voice tone, without seeing your body expressions one time, and other time just turn off the video and see yourself that without the audio, are you able to deliver those emotions during those points which you really wanted to convey uh, with your speech. So these two things, I think like I really like this idea, and I practice few speeches with that, and it really sounds like, do I really sounds like that when I saw my video or sound with that? And uh, this is something to me, like along with all those theoretical things, uh, is the most practical help which I can get by, if I cannot like what I am speaking, how I can assume that anyone else will also like what I am trying to convey there. So yeah, that's one thing which I wanted to share to all of you here. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm glad you're using that technique. It will improve your speeches dramatically.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks,
Yeah,
Jim.
those are the practice sections we do every time.
Yep.
Yeah, we do implement them when you go to
Okay.
international speeches, right? Definitely
Mhm.
you need those.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Aleta.
All right. If there are no other questions, I am going to stop recording. So any other questions? If not, we're going to stop recording. We'll just open up for general conversation. Going once? Going twice? All right. My mouse is not cooperating.
That's